Wow, this podcast is evolving faster than the speed of light. It has come to my attention that this podcast is really to bring joy and awareness back into our journeys of change, progress, and success. It's really so much more than just here's a few tips and tricks to help you get the goal or achieve the goal that you want. It's really about relationships. It's about relationship to yourself and relationship to others on your journey to freedom and fulfillment. So I hope you love it. I hope you enjoy. If you do get value from these episodes, I'd absolutely love it if you hit follow, as this enables us to bring more and more amazing guests onto the podcast. And remember, no matter what challenges you're facing, no matter how lost, stuck, behind, or frustrated you might feel in your life, there's always a bigger plan, God's plan. And if you trust that and commit to riding the waves of life with grace and courage, you're closer than you think. Today's guest calls herself the business doctor and has been dubbed Dr. Feelgood and the Oprah of the Middle East, and we're here for it. She's the CEO of a global coaching company for female entrepreneurs, a podcast host, a business strategist, and is also a health coach. She's passionate about empowering women in business and helping them unleash their inner power and shift their mindset for success. Hanan believes that business success doesn't have to come at the expense of your health and happiness. So Hanan, you're joining us all the way from Qatar, which I'm so excited about. I think you're like my first guest from that side of the world. So usually they're like from America or Australia or that side. So I'm super excited to have you.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, you're so welcome. So I guess just to get right into it, just to get started, how about you share a little bit about just your story, like where you're from, like how you ended up here, how you ended up as a business coach, because I know you're a doctor. So, and I've seen, your credentials when I was writing the guest introduction. I was just like, wow, she is so accomplished. Like, talk about a high achiever. Like, it's so inspiring. And yeah, and so I'd just love to hear, because I've had my own journey with the high achieving side of myself. And I kind of took a step back for a little while to heal and do a lot of things. But, some people are, I'm really fascinated with ambition because I am really ambitious as well. And when I see my partner, I've never actually met somebody who matches the same level of ambition as me, but he's like so much more ambitious. And so I'm really fascinated with it because there's just like some people just have this like insane drive and ambition. And I am starting to realize that it does actually come from places like energetically. Yes, I think we all, like, some people have it and some people don't, but I think our stories, where we come from, how we were raised, and all these things do play, like environmentally, culturally, socially, they play a big factor. So
that's true.
Yeah, I'd just love to hear more about your story. Yeah.
Okay. Deep breaths. This is going to be a long one.
No, go for it. We have all the time.
It's funny that you mentioned that part, or that's where you ended up talking about ambition and about accomplishment, because as a matter of fact, up until the point I actually earned my doctorate degree, I felt not good enough. And the only reason I found that out was because I had my first ever coaching session, and the coach kind of like stopped me after talking for some time. And he's like, okay, you're using the statement not good enough over and over again. And it was like, remember the ice bucket challenge? It was like someone just threw an ice bucket on top of me. It was like, oh my God. I was approaching, that was literally 2 months before my 40th birthday. And I realized that I had been super achieving because I felt not good enough. So back to the story, I'm Egyptian. I was actually born and raised in Kuwait. I was also always an expat and a third culture kid. And I only went back home to Egypt at 16 when I was going to university, spent some time there, finished my education and everything. And then I met my husband and we moved to Qatar. And that was about 18 years ago.
Wow.
So in essence, I've been an expat all my life, which actually contributed to my feeling of not good enough or not fitting in, because, I'm always an outsider.
Yes.
My upbringing did include, my father is a doctor, but he's a physician, a medical doctor. And I was expected to be a doctor like my dad, because like I'm the eldest, and I really
I
had the
can
passion for it. But when you're 16 years old and you're supposed to make your choice, because I did
You say
British
you
school,
did
so
have the
IGCSE.
passion for it, or you didn't?
I did have the passion
Okay.
for it, but
Yeah.
as a 16-year-old who's supposed to determine what you want to do for the rest of your life, the
Mm.
teenage hormones in me was like, no, I rebelled. And I'm like, I'm not going to be like you,
Yeah.
I went in intended to study computer science, and then realized I'm a people's person. I can't deal with just a machine for the rest of my life. That got me into journalism and mass communication, loved it, worked a bit in it, and then realized, yep, that's not for me as well. And fate got me into the marketing field, and I loved it. And I worked a bit more into it, got my MBA in marketing. 12 years later, after doing corporate marketing for so long, we had our son. And I decided to walk out of corporate because I'm the type that actually, which is possibly also the negative impact of super achieving, is I get psychosomatic symptoms. So my body manifests the stress into physical symptoms. So I get really ill. I got discs in my back, the migraines, the gut, the whole shabam of whatever physical symptom you can think of, my body manifested that.
Yeah.
So I walked out to take care of our son, and he was our miracle baby. We were trying for 8 years, IVF, the whole thing. And 4 months later, sitting with two of my friends and ex-work colleagues are like, let's do something. And that's what got us to start some businesses. So I was like partner in about 4 businesses in over 5.5, 6 years. That's where I started my doctoral degree, because again, I did not feel good enough. There had to be something else. I had to earn that title.
What did you start your doctoral degree in?
So I did a DBA, which is a doctorate of business administration, specializing in international business.
Wow.
But specifically because I had been working most of my career in startups and small and medium enterprises, I studied sustainable growth of small and medium enterprises, and specifically from the internationalization perspective, like how do you cross borders to grow your business?
Right, amazing.
So yeah, but I was once again, I was being burnt out. I was depleting on a physical level, emotional, mental, I was on edge all the time. And I decided, and my doctoral degree was taking too long. It was supposed to be a 2.5, 3-year journey. And I was approaching like 4+, and it just wasn't ending. So I stepped out of everything. I walked out of the businesses. I said, that's it, I'm done here. And I'm just going to focus on completing my study and just kind of seeing what happens next for me. That was supposed to be a 6-month journey that ended up being an extra 1.5 years. And then it was like, woohoo, I got my doctorate, Now what? I had no idea what to do. And it was such an anticlimactic moment. And I felt even a lot worse physically. I had gained like 20 kilos in that past year, even though I was exercising, I was eating right, I had nothing but my study. But this for me was a blessing, the biggest blessing of my life, because that was a transformational moment for me. There was a point where I did have my first coaching session. I did realize that I had been, because you were talking about success and ambition and achievement, I was following a checklist, the societal checklist of what success means. So I was like, yep, tick, yep, tick. And I was like, suddenly, you stop. I looked at it, I'm like, yeah, that's done. And I still don't feel good. And I still don't feel fulfilled. And I don't feel like a success. So now what? What do I do about my life now? And for me, it just became this moment of, okay, first things first, I'm not feeling well. So how do I take care of my health, my physical and mental and emotional health? And that got me into the health coaching certification. For the first time, I'm like, I'm doing this for me. I had been under, over following every diet that came under the sun. I followed the book, I did the exercise, I did this, and still my body was not responding. So I went into a 1-year health certification with the Institute of Integrative Nutrition out of New York. And it was a fascinating journey for me, because I started really diving deep into what really impacts our health and our wellness and our happiness. And it wasn't just about the food on our plate. It was, for me, it was a lot of other things, such as toxic relationships, my financial status, my career and what I wanted to do with it, and everything else.
Yeah.
So that got me into what I call my transformative journey, that phase of my life. So and for me, realizing is, what do I want to do with that study and like 20 years of experience back then? And I realized I want to support women in business. I want to not just help them set up the business and what I call kind of put together the business DNA, which is the vision, the mission, the financials and all of this understanding, deep understanding. But more importantly, now I can utilize everything I learned through the health coaching certification to talk to them about entrepreneurial wellness and mindset and your why, and kind of looking at the holistic view.
Yeah,
exactly. Of what it is to be a woman entrepreneur. And more importantly, of course, as a mom, that was very important as well for me, because realizing that I had always deprioritized myself, like when in relation to all the other roles I had. So that became very important to know how to prioritize myself, how to always keep myself first, and not from a place of vanity, but from a place of self-care, because if I can take care of me, I can take care of everyone else that needs me. And this kind of became my journey. And from that, the business doctor, which is my business, that's where the brand came up. So it's like the doctor part and the business part.
But more importantly,
I like to thank you. I like to think like a doctor. So looking at, talking about the symptoms and the, let's look at the process and the treatment plan and stuff. And then, that got me into being more immersed into the entrepreneurial ecosystem. So that's how I got involved with Founder Institute, which is the world's largest pre-seed accelerator program. And that comes for startups, that comes out of Silicon Valley. So I work with them in Qatar and in the GCC region as a whole, in the Gulf region. I got involved with other kind of entities that support the same kind of mission about gender disparity, financial inclusion, all of this, such as World Business Angel Investment Forum. And lastly, I decided that, okay, there's something more I could do. And this is where I co-founded the Global Businesswoman, which is, I thought women, for a lot of times, women don't get to network for the purpose of collaboration and tapping into collective wisdom and masterminds and those kind of things. And this for us was kind of the virtual equivalent, because we're looking at global businesswomen and how do we bring everyone around the table. It was the virtual equivalent of what men would do as activities that would support them to bond and do business together, such as going to the golf course on a fishing trip, or the cigar lounge, or whatever it is. So we wanted to bring the essence of what that entails into the global businesswoman. And again, from the 3 pillars of business, mindset, and wellness. So that's the long answer to your question.
And is that a mastermind where you meet online, like from women from all over the world?
Yes. Yes. Amazing. So we had 4 already. We have our upcoming one in February. People know through our website, and then we're going to also be launching our membership. That includes whether you just want to attend mastermind, and that's okay, or the additional activities such as a networking event, a fireside chat with an expert. And we're also planning what we are calling power up events, and these are kind of weekend retreats where we go somewhere, a city around the world, small group, just get to know each other, get to kind of really tap into that collective wisdom, but also enjoy one another, kind of a weekend away from the responsibilities.
Yes, I love that. Wow, what a journey. I think
still ongoing.
Yeah, well, I guess my question now is do you now feel like enough? Have you transcended that shadow, or?
It's a work in progress, Tanya, to be honest. Like there are days where, I'm like, oh my God, who am I to think this? And this was for me a huge revelation. I'm a huge Tony Robbins fan, and I did the work and all this and attended Unleash the Power Within when he did it virtually. And
Yeah,
as
so
he was
did I.
talking,
We're probably in the same room.
yeah. Oh, wow. Okay.
A couple of years ago it was. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. It was the summer of 2020. That was June, I think it was, right?
Oh,
I think it was
wow.
June
We were at the
2020.
same one.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah. It was
amazing.
the first one. Yeah.
Yeah, it was the first
And
virtual one. Oh,
yeah,
wow.
yeah.
There you go.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
So during that session and going through, kind of the whole programming, I think there was a time where he was talking about the points and sources of pain and pleasure in our life, and the stories we're telling ourselves and everything. And for me, for the first time ever, I heard the loudest voice in my head. There are others, but this was the loudest, and I hadn't realized that I wasn't listening to it before. And it was like, who do you think you are? And it was just an imprint on me from from society, from the conditioning, from work, from everything. And I realized that whatever goals I was putting for myself, when I stopped the carrot and the stick, chasing that, carrot on someone else's stick, and when I started saying, okay, what is my mission? What's my purpose? What are my goals? Every time I worked towards them, I found myself stopping and retreating,
Yes.
and kind of, this is a safe space. Don't go into the spotlight. Don't do this. And it was because of that. It was because of this voice that translated to me my goals as being audacious goals. You shouldn't be dreaming to, talk to people from around the globe, to be a person that is recognized around the globe, to serve women from around the globe. Just play small. And thus, this is still an ongoing thing. There are times where I can hear that voice, and subconsciously, sometimes it stops me. And then it's kind of, and this is why my intent for 2023 is to play big, to play as big as I am, rather than to play as small as I'm expected to be.
Yeah.
And it needs a constant reminder. I don't think you ever do get over that. I don't think you ever do get over imposter syndrome, but I've learned to stop and to analyze and to kind of detect the times where I am playing small, I am kind of shying away from that spotlight, and to stop and say, okay, where's the block now? And to work on the block, not to say, oh, okay, great, I know it now, I'm moving, through the therapy and the coaching and in the healing circles, and having that tribe to support. That's where I'm still working through the not good enough to I am worthy.
It's so crazy, isn't it? Like how the super achievers really have that voice the loudest, which makes sense, I guess, because that's kind of like it was until it's made conscious, like it's the thing that's driving us. And I am by no means comparing myself to you. You are far more accomplished than I am, but I have a degree in business marketing, and I just climbed the corporate ladder for most of my life. And I really, exactly like you, had this idea that just ticking all the boxes, and I didn't realize I was just going down the same path that was kind of it's like the unspoken expectation of, there's just one path for you. It's climb the corporate ladder, buy a house, get married, have kids, retire, and that's it. That's it.
Yeah.
Don't ask for anything more. Don't strive for anything more. Don't complicate things. Like just make it. It's like this very unconscious thing. And I don't know, maybe just in like familial dynamics, or if it's, I know it's also a very societal thing too among women, just because we do have to think about things like family and having children and all of these things. But it's fascinating how it is such a strong thing through so many women's just stories. And I think, I don't know if you feel this, but I'm also from European background, like Croatian. My parents are Croatian and they're immigrants. And so they came to Australia, about 30 years ago now. I was born here, but they immigrated here. And it everything that you were talking about reminds me of, so I had a guest on the podcast a few weeks ago. Her name's Natasha Braid. And she talks about these 4 success saboteurs. And I'm like, wow, we as women, like we have more one than the other.
Yeah.
My biggest one was always the imposter. I just felt like, yeah, it's not enough degrees, not enough certifications, not enough things to make me feel worthy of the role that I'm in and the tasks and projects that I'm taking on. But on top of that, so there's imposter, there's the outcast, which you talked about, like the outcast saboteur. So these are the things that stop us from actually reaching the success that we truly want. And actually what I'm learning as I just
sorry, Tanya, what was the second one? Because you froze for a second there.
So it was
the first one is imposter, outcast.
The first one is
not fitting in.
Yeah, the second one's outcast. The third one is overgiver, and the fourth one is hustler. And I was like, I think
all of those, guilty of all.
Yeah, I think female entrepreneurs all have a bit of, and there's nothing wrong with them. It's just these are things that sabotage like our kind of next level, if you will.
Yes, that's true.
Yeah, like if you're trying to break through a certain income ceiling or even just get rid of that feeling of like, you know, just feeling like an imposter, just not fully feeling like you're owning the stage and you're just owning your voice. And like, there's just this kind of niggling thing that's just, or I think overgiving is a big one for a lot of women too. Because you'll never see, I said this to her, I was like, you don't really see much male entrepreneurs overgiving. If anything, it's like a lot less. And so, so it is definitely, women have these unique struggles. And that's why I think it's so important for us to gather together and have these conversations and have these communities where we can talk about these things and we can heal them and we can break through them. But yeah, as I'm going along on my own, you know, spiritual journey, but also my own entrepreneurial journey, is that I've really had to redefine success in so many ways. And I think we still have this idea that it's like this thing that we're supposed to reach, but I'm really realizing that it's the satisfaction. Like I know for me, because I'm a human design and gene keys guide, and it talks all, I don't know if you know much about that, but it talks all about your strategy and authority, and like really my true self theme as like a manifesting generator, which is what I am, is satisfaction. And I was like, I really know, and I know when I can tap into that feeling of like deep satisfaction at the end of a day or even during the day, I'm like, I just feel so satisfied right now, even if I'm doing like something really unimportant or, you know, just something, I'm like, I just feel so satisfied. Like that to me is success now. Whereas before I was
that too.
Yeah. Whereas before it's really that unconscious driver. That's just like, that's the thing that brings up all the psychosomatic things. Cause I also had that. I had everything coming out through my body. I had these weird hives. I had this weird allergy. I had this just weird stuff that I'd never had before. Which is, just our body's way of getting our attention. Cause like, you're not listening. So
that's true. It's all the red flags. It's like, hang on.
I'm going to scream at you.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's the point. And that's why for me, that point I'm telling you about, it was when I stopped and said, okay, so if this is what society tells me success means, or these are the, you know, kind of the signs of success, if I'm to dismiss them for now, then I need to redefine my success parameters. And that got me into the concept of subjective success. As you were saying, there are things that give you satisfaction that might not be important. And again, you're labeling them as not important, but they are important to you because they satisfy something within you. And that for me then said, okay, if I'm kind of dismissing this list, what would be my success parameters? What would be my how would I measure my subjective success? And it boiled down to three things, just as simple as that. Number one was that for the first time in my life, I am prioritizing me, my health, my wellness, my happiness, and not from a place, you know, I'm also dismissing how I was conditioned that is obnoxious, that's greedy, and that's selfish, and, you know, all of these things. No, because I realized that when I'm healthier and happier, I'm a much better person. I'm a much better mother, wife, business person, friend, family member, whatever it is.
Yeah.
Number
Did
two
you have
was
a
that
moment? Did you have a moment where your life went from, because mine was big, like where I went from the unconscious kind of just being just this unconscious reaction to life and just being driven by all these things that I just wasn't aware of, to having like, I had like a really big spiritual awakening. I had a really big dark night of the soul. Like mine was really dark. But I know for some people it's like they just have, I don't know, was there a moment, or was there a time where you felt like
there were two actually.
Okay.
There were two. One of them was that coaching call, because it was my first time experiencing that. And it was someone else looking
giving
and
you
saying,
that feedback, giving you that reflection.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, you're saying
amazing. Great
you're
coach.
using, he said, the way he said it is like you're using this phrase over and over again, not good enough. And because one of the things that he highlighted, again, we met over LinkedIn. I wasn't active on any other social media at that point in time.
Yeah.
So we met over LinkedIn. So again, he's looking at my credentials for him. Wow, impressive. You've got a great record. And for me, the way I was talking about myself and, everything, I was using not good enough in the middle, that 2 months before that call, and this call was 2 weeks before I got the congratulations doctor email, the final thing. I went out and I got another accreditation, another certification as a small and medium enterprise consultant, because I felt not good enough, because I felt that is the thing.
What made you want to get on that coaching call?
And I think
what made you reach out, or did he
I
reach
was
out?
intrigued.
Okay.
He was the one that reached out. I think for him as well, he was going through his coaching hours, but
this is really good
on a personal
people.
level, I was intrigued.
Yeah, I think this is really good for people to know the value of coaching, because I know a lot of people may have this kind of very closed mindset to it.
It gets a negative connotation.
But
to be honest, because there are a lot of people who are pushing it down your throat right now, that you get to like, seriously, I don't know you, I don't trust you, and all of this. But it's a fascinating, empowering tool to be used that way.
Yes.
And that for me was kind of really the eye opener. So that was the first big thing. The second big thing was maybe a year later, as I was delving and diving deep into this journey of self-healing and self-development and kind of getting myself out of a rut. I got introduced by a friend of mine. She told me about it. She's like, why don't you try the Ho'oponopono meditation, which is a Hawaiian meditation.
Yes, I know it.
And it's literally 4 lines. I'm sorry, please forgive me, thank you, I love you. And I was listening to it on repeat on YouTube. This is how I started my day, between the positive affirmations, just listening to it. And then I had a huge aha moment. As I said, my body and my weight and my physical appearance had always been a struggle for me, because my body was always manifesting that stress and protecting me. And that for me was like, oh my God, this meditation, I was saying it with no intention. I was just, kind of repeating it, just seeing where it will take me. And then then it hit me. I'm like, oh my God, I'm saying this to my body. I'm sorry. Please forgive me. Thank you. I love you. And I realized at that point in time that I had really been against my body. I'm not sure if I hated it, but I was really angry at it, because it wasn't responding to everything I'm doing, because it didn't look the way that I wanted it to. And that entailed, every time, and for a lot of women as well, when we're not feeling physically confident, that impacts all our confidence on the other realms, and I realized at that point, I'm like, oh my God, this body carried me through so much. I had been through so much, through the, whatever it is, and even though, so the physical part, the emotional, the mental, and all of this, but even though I did not take care of you, I abused you, you gave me a healthy pregnancy, you put on hold the pains and the aches excuse me, so I can go through the pregnancy. So even my slip discs are like in my back at that point, back in the day, this was like 12, 13, 14 years ago. I was in so much pain I could hardly walk. And yet when I got pregnant for 9 months, I had no pain whatsoever when it came to my back.
Wow.
And the moment, like it was literally 2 or 3 weeks after I gave birth, my back was back again. It was hurting again and it was in pain. So I just looked at these moments and I said, and I didn't take care of you. So I was talking to my body. I was really abusing you, and I was taking you through hell with all the extreme diets and the deprivation. And I went actually under the knife. I had surgery, a gastric band, and I reversed it. So all of this, and you still stood tall. You still carried me through. And this was a transform. Because I was during that phase of I'm in control and I'll not let something control me for me. And I wanted to regain control of my body and to regain control of my eating habits. And I called it now nourishment rather than eating. And I don't use the word diet. And I'm still working on it again. I'm still fighting 40 to 45 years.
Words are so powerful. Like the words that we use, words that we associate with certain things, they do. They're so such a big difference.
Which is what Tony refers to as transformational vocabulary, and I'm very conscious of it now.
Yeah.
But so this was literally the moment where I changed my relationship with my body, and I appreciate my body.
So in that meditation, you were like, oh my gosh, I'm saying this to my body.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Yeah. And since then, I'm still working to shed the layers of fat that were there to protect me, and it's still a work in progress. And I still have my off days, and that's okay. But I don't look at my body with disgust or hate or anger anymore, or resentment. I look at it as like, okay, even that part of my affirmations is I am safe. You can let go now. I'm talking to my fat cells. Let go. You can go. But even that was so these were 2 moments that were really, really pivotal for me over the past 4 or 5 years.
Yes. Wow. That's amazing. I definitely can relate with the weight journey too. Like I've always been my mum said ever since I was like 2 months old, I was just always chubby, like chubbier. And and I had an addiction to exercise probably throughout most of my 20s. And so I had this very distorted image of myself. Like I thought I was way bigger than what I was. And now I've put on, and so I went through this thing and I just never saw myself, we just don't see ourselves correctly sometimes. And and so anyway, I've moved to this like small country town and I've put on a bit of weight, and I was just like, oh wow, when you look back and you're like, and I used to think I was like so fat back then. And it's just what we do to ourselves and the way we see ourselves, it's all perception. Like it's such a perception.
It's the residual self-image. It's residual self-image, and again the imprint, as you were saying.
I will say that I love myself.
I was referred to as chubby all my life.
Yeah, I will say that I do love my body more now, only because I feel freer in it. I realize even though I felt really good with less weight, and like obviously I was more active and like all of these things were all amazing, but I was super addicted to the exercise. It was like a coping mechanism. And I realized that that's also another thing that causes our upper limits. It creates
I've been there. I've been down that journey. Exactly.
It creates this upper limit.
And it was that as well. It was that as well for me. It was I discovered CrossFit at that point in time, just before our coaching call, and that last year and a half of going through, my doctoral degree, I had to let it out somewhere. I discovered CrossFit and kickboxing. I was doing all that. But as you said, I became addicted to it as a coping mechanism, that I was actually getting injured. And I was still showing up to the workout the next morning. Even my shoulder, I got tendonitis and I couldn't move my arm. It's okay. I can squat. I don't need my arm, you know, or it's okay. I'll do something else. My knees gave out. I'm like, it's okay. I can do something else.
It's like you could just never let yourself be seen as weak or like a victim or something like.
And it's a mindset thing. I think it's in our head, because for me, it was like, again, I was referred to as chubby all my life. And you know, it was cute and I accepted it, but I hadn't realized that it imprinted on me, that in my mind, that became my identity. And I was not the athletic. I tried every sport and I really did well. But again, like my father, bless him, he's the joker and he's the fun charisma type, but he always made fun of us one way or another. So my sisters and I, and like I go and tell him, Daddy, I made it to the volleyball team. He's like, seriously? So where's your position? Under the net? I'm like, or Daddy, I went, you know, kind of, I went horseback riding. I'm picking up horseback riding. Oh, so this is the first horse with back issues because you're on it. And I'm like, you know, you joke about it, but in essence, what he was doing was imprinting on me that I'm not athletic. I can't do this. And thus for me, picking up any sport as an adult and going to the gym and working out was, I've got to do it 10 times more because I'm trying to tell myself, I'm not the non-athletic chubby kid. And it took a lot of work, and I'm still in the process of changing that. I call it residual self-image of me as a chubby non-athletic person, to saying I deserve to be whoever I want to be. And you know, our bodies are fascinating machines, and we can create whatever we want. We can sculpt our bodies the way we want. And this is still a work in progress. I still, you know, I'm still working through it. But
I think the self-concept. Oh, I think you dropped out.
I'm not looking at the mirror and just seeing that person or seeing the fat enveloping my body.
The self-concept piece is really, really big, because if we don't if we don't choose the way that we want to see ourselves, like consciously, then it'll just be this unconscious narrative. And wow, okay. Where do I want to go from here? So this not enough piece.
There's a long way from the business doctor that we went, but I'm happy we're going there.
Yes, but it's all part of it, right? Like it's all part of and even if we're just talking about women fulfilling their true potential, whether they're business owners or not, it's about fulfilling our true potential. It's also about fulfillment, and finding that fulfillment in life, because
it's true.
You know, there are a lot of people who may not be super achievers. They may not be the kind of inclined to go and have like maybe as much imposter syndrome as we've had. And so it's really good for them to even listen to something like this, because then they can see like, okay, even if I don't relate to that part specifically, there are other upper limits that I have that I maybe, like, for example, with the coping mechanisms. Things that, like, you know, all of this, it's like we're all so much more similar than we like to think in lots of ways, like just human beings and how we operate and how we do you know, the reasons or the motivations behind why we do things. And it's like,
that's true.
Like the coping mechanisms that really block our potential that we're just not aware of. And because I was so addicted to the exercise, I wasn't able to just be with myself. And so this comes back to the feminine power for me. This comes back to like the feminine, reclaiming that really feminine part of myself, because I was very much hyper in my masculine. And so, it's the being part and being okay with just all of that, and just all of yourself, and being with your thoughts, being with your body without actually having to do anything about it. And and that's really like an act of
and going back as well. Yes, and taking a couple of steps back and stopping to ask yourself why. Why am I doing this? Whatever this is, whether we're talking about business or career or partnership or marriage or kids or whatever it is, exercise. Why am I doing this? What am I fulfilling with it? And is this part of my subjective success parameters? So when I work with women, I say, if you're looking to build the next $1 million business, great, that's a success. I'll support you. If you're looking to build the next 2 hours a day as the kids are in school business, great, that's a success, and I'll support you. Because again, we're also we're conditioned to compare ourselves, and now with social media, you can't help but compare yourself with everyone on your feed.
Yes.
And that's looking at. And I stop to say, I have to consciously stop myself and ask, why am I comparing myself to them? And is it even comparable? Everyone, I mean, we are all the same and we're all so different. Everyone has different life circumstances and they have different objectives and they have, different parameters in their life that dictates how far they go and how fast they go and how big they can grow at a certain point in time. We don't give ourselves enough permission to say, it's okay. You and I could have the same goal that I would like to. I'm planning and putting in the work to reach it in 1 year or in 5 years, and you're putting it in 1 year. That doesn't make me unsuccessful because I didn't achieve the same thing in a year. It just means that whatever is happening in my life, because I need to accommodate my resources, and my resources, I say, are my entrepreneurial resources at any point in time. And even for us as humans, your time, your energy, your knowledge, and your money. And then we've got the fifth type of resource that would be any tangible or intangible assets you have. I need to see how to utilize them best. If I'm a mother of 2 kids under the age of 5, then time and energy are not really high in my resources, in my resource pool. But the other way around, I could be kind of single and career oriented and everything, then I might have more on the money side, less on the time, but more on the energy. So I can still, and I'm like 20, so I can still kind of do the work and then the side passion and then the exercise and all of this. I'm more in control of my resources than someone else who has to kind of distribute it among more parameters. So these are all elements we need to look at, because I get this conversation a lot. My friends did better, or they finished faster, or whatever it is. I'm like, yeah, I have these conversations and I'm like, but what's happening in your life? Do you know everything that's happening in their life? Do you know what they had to compromise to get to that milestone faster? And for some people, they give up their social life, they give up their family life, they do this, they do that. With men as well, like, men have the capacity to be able to say, okay, I'm going on a business trip for 3 weeks, and that's okay because someone is holding the fort. I can't go, as a mom and a wife, I can't go on a business trip for 3 days without planning it 3 months in advance, because I have to accommodate how are we going to manage. So these are all elements that we need to think about when it comes to our why, and more importantly, when we're setting up our goals and what we're hoping to achieve within a specific time period.
Yeah, and this brings me to, I love that you brought that up, because there are these expectations that are put on women, but also it's just in our nature. Right? Like, we're not going to leave the house without having everything sorted and the children looked after and knowing, what's happening. And it's just in our nature to want to do that. Which brings me to my next question, which is really about this idea of compromise. Because I think as women, we're definitely more inclined to compromise on our dreams, on our goals, on our everything, on ourselves, in order to please the people around us, or to just keep peace, or to do all these things. And even for myself, right now, I don't have children. I'm not married. I have a partner and I live with him. But there's still certain things where, like, I cook most of the time, or I clean. Like, he, guys just are not into that really. So they're just going to leave it until like, oh, I'll just clean once every 2 weeks. And I'm like, I'm pretty much vacuuming the floors every day. You know, just little things like that. And I have to stop myself and be like, okay, like what am I'm compromising something here because I want a clean house, and I have to really manage my time around that and really see where, and that's where I see upper limits happening. And so compromise is a really big one because it can be a shadow for a lot of people. So yeah, how have you managed that? Do you find yourself, do you have like a strict schedule that you stick to? Do you find yourself compromising? Like, how do you manage or navigate that?
First of all, I learned to let go of my guilt and shame when it came to, especially as those things, as you were saying, the part that manages the house, the cleaning, the cooking, the tidying up, and all of this. When we first got married, my husband and I, like once, I'm not a chores person, a home's chores person. I'm all about, I'm borderline OCD. So when it comes to organizing and tidying up, you'll never find, hardly ever find anything out of its place. But when it comes to dusting and dishes and stuff, I'm gonna procrastinate so much in doing them until I really have to. You know, it's a must rather than it's a luxury. And there was once that my husband started washing the dishes, and I looked and I'm like, oh my God, the shame. Because I'm conditioned that, no, you take care of the house, that your husband has to see the house at all times, that it's, you know, it's clean and speckless and all of this. And for me, it was like,
I wonder if it's like,
oh my God, I just let him down, I let myself, and there was so much shame.
Yeah. And I feel that. And I'm wondering, like, when I think of it, it's like this almost expectation I have of myself though, because I don't even think society really has that expectation of women. I think we have it of ourselves. And I feel like
no, it does. No, it does. It's conditioned by society and every society. We
do you think,
you know,
I
the
feel
good
like
girl,
maybe it's more cultural.
The 50s wife and those kind of things.
Yes, I do feel like the Western society, it's not as much though.
It's changing. Let's say that. Let's say that
I just feel like there are certain,
is shifting, and that's a good thing.
I feel, yes, absolutely. I feel like the Western society, there is definitely more acceptance around the roles that we play. You know, even because my partner's Fijian.
Of course.
Yeah. So my partner's Fijian.
Like in Middle Eastern culture, in Middle Eastern culture, that's a big thing.
Yes, I know. And being from Croatia, being Eastern European, it's also very big thing. Like, you know, it's very common for women to be housewives and just, you know, and just not compromise on those roles. But yeah, in the Western world, I do see that there is much more like flow between the two roles, and just there's less expectations. There still needs to be conversations. There still needs to be some kind of clarity around, you know, who's doing what and what feels right for people. But even for me, I've had to have a lot of conversations with my partner around roles and just what I will and won't do. And yeah, it's not easy, like, you know, because and
I think it's not about roles. Because again, when we try to label it as a role, then we're also stereotyping it into gender specific. I think more about what am I comfortable doing and what's part of my responsibility in terms of we're sharing this household. We're partners in life and in this space. And this is part, as I was saying, like letting go of the shame and the guilt when my husband decides, like, okay, I'm going to support you by doing the dishes or something. I'm like, great, that's the way he was brought up. And I said, oh my God, that makes me feel like I've seen my father do this with my mom. So that's what I'm saying. Again, yes, definitely it's about conditioning, because my dad never picked up anything at home. He's, you know, you get him a glass of water even. But then I also started saying, this is where I need support. I would like, you know, so we pay for someone to come clean the house once or twice a week. I don't do, you know, I'm not comfortable doing this, but there's always, I'll do the organizational part. with the pandemic and the lockdown and stuff, my husband decided, because he was home a lot more, he's like, he started exploring cooking. So he started cooking a lot more. And I'm like, great. First I was like, oh my God, now I feel bad. I should be doing this. But then when he's offering, I'm like, why not? I can support by doing the dishes, or I can support by doing, all the grocery shopping. He doesn't do the grocery shopping, so I'll do that. He'll support with this.
Yeah.
So that's, then it becomes, how do we share this space and the responsibilities within this space in a way that we can benefit from our core competences in, rather than really go against ourselves and try to enforce something that I'm comfortable doing.
Yeah.
Our son is 12 years old. Starting around 6 or 7, we started telling him and enforcing him and kind of supporting him to be independent. So now he can cook his own breakfast. He bakes, he's independent in the kitchen. He doesn't need our supervision. We ask him, you have to wash your dishes when you're done, bake your bed, because he needs to be independent.
Yeah.
It is not about waiting for someone to do something for you.
For sure.
It is about him being independent, preparing him for when he goes out and does it for himself.
Yeah.
So that's why I'm saying we need to change the narrative, and we need to have more open conversations about it. Sometimes, again, because we are conditioned to fall to the victim mentality a lot of, I have to do all of this and you're not doing anything. Number one, have we asked? Yes, there will be a lot of resistance at the beginning if this is not the norm, but then we look at the compromise. So, okay, if I do this, and this within the household, I'm going to expect you, please. I'm going to ask you, you do the grocery shopping, you do the errands, you do the things where I don't have to go outside. So I'm not doing both fronts. Yeah. So these are some of the things that I think that in terms of compromise, but also one of the things that I was compromising on big time was taking care of me in terms of even the small acts of self-love and self-care, such as getting my nails done. I remember when I first had our son, especially, it was like, oh my God, I can't leave my son for like 2 hours because I need to go get a haircut because my hair is really dry, and all of this, or I'll go get my nails. And now it has become part of my routine on a monthly basis, that it's okay for me. I don't have to justify to myself or to my family, my husband and my son, that, okay, it's my nails appointment, I'm going to go now.
Yeah.
Oh, we need to do something together as a family, or someone's expecting something of me once I'm done, because these are 2 hours that are for me.
Yeah.
And I don't feel guilty about, putting in the time, but also putting in the money to reward myself. Or it's not really a reward, but it's to pamper myself. And these are elements that we also need to think about. We don't have to overindulge, and we don't have to say, oh, I need to go buy everything because I owe this to myself, because I also need to look at and financial wellness is a big thing as well, that I'm working on healing. And I've just actually had a masterclass last week about it, was about, how do I utilize this money resource and use it in a way that does not deprive me and does not make me feel guilty, but it is invested, such as a resource would be invested, in a way that has returns for me, whether that, I'm rewarding myself, or I'm giving to charity, or I'm investing in my business and in my self-development, or I'm supporting where I can support my family. So these are elements as well that also we have to look at the compromise versus, oh, here you go, everyone. Because that for me was that, it's like, let me give everything I've got because it's okay. I owe it to everyone. And I woke up one day, I was like, okay, I have nothing left for me. And now I have to start all over.
Yeah.
So it's multifaceted on so many levels.
How did you go? Did you ever feel guilt in the roles that you played? Or did you just always kind of realize like, okay, I don't want to feel guilt around this, so I'm just not going to do it? Or was there like a period where you were like, okay, I'm feeling, a lot of guilt and I need to shift this?
It is. I mean, I did feel the guilt, and I do work on shifting it, as you said. It's more about, and I think it comes with a bit of practice and also understanding and appreciation of yourself. Like you offloading something that I think Dean Graziosi speaks of this. This is the automate, delegate, eliminate, kind of
Yes.
concept
Yeah.
of looking, is there something I can do about it? That whether I'm paying someone else to do this for me, so that would be the delegate, or not necessarily pay, but just say, you can do this, I'll do that, automate it or eliminate it completely. And I always have to keep going back to this and reminding myself that how do I best utilize my resources? If this is something that, well, gives me joy, makes me feel connected, makes me feel like I'm contributing to the family well-being in of any way, then sure, I will do it. Does this mean that, I'm always feeling this way? No, there's sometimes I'm like, I really don't want to be doing this, but I know that, I need to do grocery shopping because we need to eat for the rest of the week, or we need to plan, whatever it is. So I think it comes with practice and more being self-attuned on where you would really realize that. I think internally we have a line, that line where this is crossing, okay, this is not nice anymore.
Yeah.
And where it's like, okay,
Yeah.
I'll take it back. It's okay.
Yeah.
I'm not going to cross the line this time.
Yeah. Yeah. I want to just speak into guilt a little bit, just for those who are listening, because my journey with guilt, mine really started because I grew up in a really religious family. So it was like Catholic religion, and guilt was just kind of like this pervasive thing that was always used as a weapon against our own, I don't know, authentic happiness, against our own expansion, growth, again, all very unconscious. But I notice it comes from a lot of it comes from religion, or it's very strong in religions like the Catholic religion, and it's used as a weapon against us. And when I had my spiritual awakening and I really started to change my relationship with God, in general, like I no longer I didn't identify as somebody who was religious. I really identified as someone who was more spiritual, and I just changed my whole entire relationship with God and source. And in that awakening, like all the guilt that I felt, there was still shame I had to work through and all of that, but all the guilt that I felt, even around social obligations and certain things, like you would see me, like I wouldn't even be able to say no to a certain event because of the guilt that I would feel for not being there, when the person probably wouldn't even really care if I came or not. Like, yeah, it would be nice if you were there, but whatever. But it was like the guilt that I felt for not being there, not being seen as like the perfect friend or the perfect whatever. It all kind of, I really started to reassociate my meanings with those kind of feelings. And I was like, yeah, the guilt just kind of dropped away as soon as I released my identity with being like religious. And then now if I now with expectation, and it's also that expectation, right? It's like when we don't feel like we're fulfilling someone's expectation, whether it's conscious or unconscious, we may feel guilty. We may feel like, okay, this person expects this of me. And, especially if you're like a very empathic and you just want to, be attuned to them and connected to them, then you're going to just want to fulfill those expectations in some way. But the more that if I just think about me and my partner, like the more that I recognize his own unconscious and expectations, or the more that we verbalize them, there's literally just no space for guilt, because it's like, well, I know what you expect. He knows what I expect. If any unconscious things, expectations do come up, like they're straight away kind of dealt with. And so like, things around, like when we were talking about the roles that we play, it's like not so much that we put rules in the house. It's more that I just naturally just do certain things, like, I'll start vacuuming or whatever, just because I value that. right? He might not value, he doesn't really care if the floors are completely
Yeah.
spotless, but I value that. Like I could have all the dishes, like the dishes don't really bother me, but if I have like just a clean floor, like I'm good. Just weird things. Like I know we all have weird things, but it's like
Yeah, I know.
that's just what I value.
No,
Like,
but that's exactly it. Yeah.
yeah. So it's just what I value. So like,
That for me, it's organizing.
yeah. And I think as you get to know someone, like, and just what they value, it's like, yeah, you can yeah, when you really start to learn someone, and the guilt can really drop. But I think that yeah, we first have to address yeah, the expectations we have of ourselves, and maybe some of that religious conditioning that comes along with it, that just is used as a weapon against us. Yeah.
Yes. I think it's when it comes to religion, it's really about how it is used and sometimes manipulated,
Yeah.
because that entails our conditioning.
Yeah.
And I know it is the same thing in Islam. It's like there are times where, you are conditioned that it's God and then your parents. Well, actually, God, your mom, your dad. So it's those kind of
Yeah.
this kind of hierarchy
Yeah.
of devotion, and thus you are conditioned to feel guilty if you are not 100% obliging to your parents' needs in taking care of them and all of this. And as you said, it's kind of, then you have to get to a point where you have to stop for yourself and say, first, where's the guilt coming from? And it's going back to the source. And
Yeah.
then, is it justifiable for me, the me of today, or not?
Yeah.
And then act accordingly.
Yeah.
Like as I was saying, I would feel guilty leaving my son to go take care of myself, whatever that entails.
Mm-hmm.
But then you have to say that again, because that's a conditioning of a mom sacrifices her life for the children.
Yeah.
Well, no, yes, they are your responsibility. And
Yes.
yes, you are obliged to take care of them, especially when little and they're
Yeah.
very dependent.
Yeah.
But I don't sacrifice my life because I had a child. And
Yeah. Well,
and
there's
this
such
is
a fine
why,
line between,
giving up career.
yeah, between self-sacrifice
Yeah.
and and what's the word what I want to use? Can't think of the word right now. But yeah, I think
Obligation.
no, because self-sacrifice is not good, right? Like it's not a good thing. But putting ourselves first and choosing ourselves is a good thing, because we there's nothing better for children than to see their parents in their joy and in their passion and working towards something that
Happy,
they,
fulfilled,
and to feel
yes.
satisfaction and to be in their passion. Like there's nothing greater than that. Doesn't actually, I think there's this huge stigma around like, oh, be at home with your kids all the time, but it's like, not really. I think there's nothing better than seeing somebody striving for
Yeah.
their goals and just feeling joy and satisfaction and passion. And everyone's got different standards for what that is.
And also giving them permission. Yeah, because as you take me time and they see you doing that, they see you being a happier, more fulfilled person for doing it. Whatever me time is, whether me time
Yeah.
is just a social part or even the career part, whatever it is,
Yeah.
they will grow up to
Yes.
reflect that, to say,
They will always do what you do.
me
Yeah.
time as well.
Not what you say.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So true. Um,
This has been intense.
yeah, I know. Well, I guess the last thing I want to ask you, and, feel free if this is, too deep or whatever, but I'd love to know, just as a woman, in the Middle East with everything that's going on, even in places like Iran, and, there is a lot of oppression around women there. And to see you like so successful, even though, you may not feel enough sometimes, but, you're so accomplished, you're so successful. How do you navigate that? Like, did you ever feel that sense of oppression? And does it weigh, like, do you feel that in just, yeah, the air, or is it something that, you just have a different perspective on? Like, I'd just love to hear your perspective on that.
It's first of all, it really does depend on the geography of where you are. I'm absolutely blessed and grateful to have been raised and living in places where I get to be who I am,
Yeah.
and I don't have kind of the outer oppression from the
Yes.
perspective of like a place of Iran or Afghanistan or something like that.
Yeah.
That being said, like, you know, between Kuwait, Egypt, and Qatar, where I live now, generally speaking, again, media does amplify a lot more than what is actually happening and how people are living their everyday lives and careers. I know amazing Iranian women who are doing amazing things, have their own businesses, and you know, their life is also inspirational on so many levels.
Yeah.
That being said, and this is something that I have learned for myself as well, is yes, we might not have 100% control or choice in our life. And this applies to anyone in any place in the world.
Yeah.
But it is our duty to recognize what we can and can't control and what we can and can't influence and work with that. Is it easy, or is it the only solution to pick up and go somewhere else and start anew? It's not always an option. But can you make the best of what you've got? I see that there is a possibility. And I always say that it's whether you're looking at 1% to 5% control and agency in your own life, or you can go up to 80 or 90%. That would be amazing. Work with it and see what you were meant and destined to influence and impact with that percentage of control that you have in your life. There were times where I did feel, I want to say, the limitation of being in the Middle East and yet having a view of, you know, kind of reaching the world. And I've changed that for myself, saying, I can reach the world. I'm talking to you now across continents. I can bring myself to other places. If I can't do it physically, now I can do it digitally, and put my work out there and reach others, and you know, just kind of really live for my purpose on a daily basis. I might not achieve all of it in my lifetime. I hope I've got other lifetimes. I can still work on it. But I know that every day I put in the intent, I set the intent that I will put in my best effort to be the best version of myself today, and to positively impact and influence and serve the world as I have been destined to.
Yes. And I see that, like, you're a liberated woman. I feel that in you. I see that in you. And I guess, yeah, what I feel like, I mean, what I was referring to is really like this it is like a frequency of oppression, because I know I felt it in my own life, where I'm like, and the shame of that, like, you know, living in Australia, being privileged, being white, all of these things. And I still had this frequency of oppression. Actually, if I talk about human design and gene keys, like, it's actually a shadow in my chart of oppression. And so it's interesting because it's not even so much about the geography. It's like almost like this frequency that we adopt, or that it's like a shadow in us that we are constantly trying to transcend in our lives. And it can be a gift. Well, it is actually a gift. When you transmute it, it does end up being your greatest gift. And so, I see that there is no, you're just like liberated, and it's just so beautiful to see. And I think it's really inspiring. And I think that so many people can just, because I think the media does, you know, push a lot of things, and we only see the negative. And so I was just wondering, as like, you know, even location and geography wise, does it affect you? But how does it make you feel when you're in such close proximity to those places? But it's like, you're like, no, I still just do me, and I focus on my purpose, and I'm a liberated woman. And it's just amazing. You're amazing.
Thank you so much, Tanya. This has been really invigorating. Such a conversation that just kind of delves deep and brings up a lot of this stuff.
Yeah.
But I'm really happy we had this.
I'm so glad too. I've just got a couple of closing questions that I ask all my guests. So what is your message to the world, Hanan?
Empowered you empowers others. That's my slogan. And it is about finding that inner power from within.
Yeah.
You always like seek the support from outside, seek the nudges and stuff. But if you cannot find that fire within you, and if you cannot become that powerhouse within you, then it is difficult for someone to push you. So you becoming empowered empowers others around you. And whether your impact circle is one person or 1 million people, you are destined to serve from that perspective.
Yes, I love that. And what's one piece of business advice that you have learned the hard way?
Woohoo! It's what we were talking about earlier. It's that subjective success and your why. If you don't dig deep enough to know why, like the answer are the 3 questions: why this, why now, why me, and what am I bringing to the world within my capacity at this point in time. Like, what are my resources and how can I serve? Have the huge visions. I always encourage people, please have the big dreams, but use the incremental steps towards getting to them. Don't put too much pressure on yourself that you actually impede yourself. Like, there are times I realized that I'm my biggest obstacle and I had to push me out of the way, because sometimes it's also the opposite, that I'm playing too small, that I'm not getting to the goals that I'm setting my mind to. So it's whether you're thinking too big but not acting enough, or you're thinking too small on not acting on your potential of big enough. Just take the step of today. Look where you are today, and take tomorrow. Look at tomorrow.
Yes.
Look at tomorrow. That's all you need.
Oh, that's huge. Yeah. The thinking, the dreaming too big and not taking the action, or the playing too small and not fulfilling your potential. Wow. Huge. Yeah. Yes. Anyone listening, just become aware of where you're falling and yeah, bring it back to the present moment and take those steps. Okay. And amazing. The last one is, if you fill in the blank, you're closer than you think.
If you feel the fire within you, you're closer than you think. Because a lot of people live all their lives with no fire, no spark.
Yes, so true. Like, follow the fire, follow the passion. Yes. Yep. I love it. Thank you so much, Hanan. It's been such a pleasure. You're amazing. You're just a powerhouse, and I'm just so glad to have you. So are you.
So are you. Thank you for this conversation, and thank you for addressing so many topics. I loved it. Thank you.
Thank you.